Okay. I think we are live on both Instagram and YouTube here. Give people a minute to show up. It's going to be a book launch live stream of The Land of Giants, The Mystery of the Redwoods, which is out today. We are today. Live on
there's
both.
an echo.
Okay, get rid of that. All right. All right. Yep. It's finally out. It's finally here. It is available for purchase, not just as a pre-order, but the real deal. Both at my website, books.colwebharter.xyz, and it is also available on Amazon. Doesn't matter. Doesn't really matter where you get it. I make just about as much. The only problem with Amazon is, well, you're supporting Amazon, which you may not want to do. Yeah. Anyway, so we're going to read a little bit from the book, and we're going to talk about some of the things that happen in it, and more kind of the history and the sort of the real life lore that's behind it tonight. So first thing we're going to do, the very first thing that you will read when you get it is the paramony. Now the paramony is kind of like a prologue. It's a fancy name for a prologue, and it just kind of sets the stage in sort of a thematic way for everything that is to follow. So, Paramony 93, Pasadena, California, March 1946. John Whitehead Jack Parsons, co-founder of the Jet Propulsion Lab and high-ranking acolyte of the Beast, Aleister Crowley, completes the Babylon working. He returns to the parsonage, his palatial home in Pasadena, early in the morning. He spent last night finishing the working somewhere out in the Mojave Desert east of Los Angeles. With him is Marjorie, his scarlet woman, the goddess Babylon incarnate. Soon she will bear his child, a devil spawn known as the Moonchild. He telephones his closest collaborator, the magician Lafayette Ronald Hubbard, and informs him of the ritual's success. It is the dawning of a new age. The Aeon of Horus is ending. The age of Babylon, mother of abominations, is at hand. Visions of rockets and a free humanity, his two great goals, fill Jack's head. What they've done, Jack and Marjorie and Lafayette, will change history. Soon man will go to the moon. Sooner still, he will break free of his prudish scruples and embrace free love. Rockets and love, for love is the law, love under will. Jack smiles, knowing that what he has willed shall be. He has remade the world in his image. Some years later, Jack's body is found splattered across his makeshift laboratory after a loud explosion. Whether it was murder or an accident, whether a science experiment or a magic ritual, is unknown even to this very day. And now a story of the latter days and the mystery of iniquity. So that's kind of how I wanted to set the stage for this book. So all of that is true. Okay. It sounds crazy, but all of that really did happen. Jack Parsons was he was the founder of the Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Los Angeles, very renowned rocket scientist, but he happened to be a follower of a certain religion called Thelema, which was founded by Aleister Crowley. Now, Aleister Crowley was a ceremonial magician from the early 20th century. Basically, everything he did wound up being the foundation for all of 20th and 21st century esotericism and occultism. So, Wicca and he was in the Golden Dawn, and then he got kicked out for worshiping the devil. So he was very influential. He spent time in St. Gallen, Switzerland, where he made the acquaintance of Vladimir Lenin, and he, of course, is the the author of the Gnostic Mass, which is sort of a black mass celebrated in certain occultist circles even to this day. Jack Parsons was his highest ranking acolyte in America. Jack Parsons was a scientist, but also he was very, very into the occult. And he had this home in Pasadena called the Parsonage, where he would have, all kinds of ribaldry going on, all kinds of, because part of Thelema is sex magic, so all kinds of crazy stuff were going on at the parsonage back in the day. And he got it into his head. He wanted to see a world full of rockets and technology and free love, all that kind of thing. So he found a ritual in Aleister Crowley's Book of the Law, from Liber 49, of the Book of the Law, called the Babylon Working, which is invoking the goddess Babylon, the mother of abominations, right? So this is a reference that Crowley got from the Book of Revelation, the whore of Babylon, right? Mystery, Babylon the Great, sitting upon many waters, riding the beast and drunk with the blood of the saints, from Revelation chapter 17. And so he devised this Babylon Working with his, at the time, I don't know if they were ever married. I think she was just his girlfriend, Marjorie. And then his best friend was Lafayette Ronald Hubbard, L. Ron Hubbard, who, of course, went on to found the Church of Scientology many years later. Jack Parsons, in a letter to Aleister Crowley, referred to L. Ron Hubbard as the most Thelemic man he'd ever met. Thelema is all about the actualization of the will, right? It's a religion that worships the will, your true will, right? So their sort of, I guess their foundational concept is, do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law, love under will. So it's a very sort of individualistic, willing philosophy. Thelema is the Greek word for will. So everything in Thelema is about will. So what you do in these, in Thelema is you have some kind of ritual. This is called chaos magic. You come up with some highly stimulating, sort of orgiastic type of ritual, highly emotive, right? And you pour your intention for what you want to get into this ritual, and it's supposed to send your energy out there into the universe and bring it back to you, right? And who can really argue with him, right? Who can argue that it doesn't work? Because what did we see? Very shortly after the Babylon Working was completed, we saw the space age, right? The space race and man going to the moon, right? And an age of rockets and technology and airplanes and the internet. And then we also saw, the summer of love and the sexual revolution. So my personal opinion is that whatever they were doing out there in the desert really did have the desired effect. I think it's impossible to understand the history of the second half of the 20th century without understanding Jack Parsons and Crowley. They really changed things, I think. And of course you don't hear about that in, so I guess, profane history, but we live in an age of the mystery of iniquity, right? And I think this Babylon Working was the sort of the coming out party. This is what unleashed all of this upon us, right? And Crowley Hubbard, he eventually stole Marjorie from Jack Parsons, and she became his first wife. And then later on he founded the Church of Scientology, which, a quick note on Scientology, everybody likes to make fun of Scientology, right? Because, it's Xenu, and you got to pay for these e-meter readings and all this kind of stuff, right? And people call it a cult, which maybe it is, but there is a deeper philosophy there. It's not all just silliness. It actually is a very well-developed sort of occult Gnostic system. I mean, it's Thelema for the common man, really, is what it is. It is essentially the same thing as Thelema. but it has a bit more of trappings of traditional religion, I guess you could say, which made it a little more appealing. Long after Parsons and Crowley, of course, you know, went to their eternal reward. Hubbard founded the Church of Scientology, and it has, of course, been rather successful. But that's sort of the esoteric, mystical background of this book that I've written. Of course, coming out of Ursabet and the Mystery of Iniquity was basically dealing with the same themes. The theme song to Ursabet is called "He aquí un caballo pálido," which means "Behold a pale horse," which is also a reference to the Book of Revelation, the pale horse, upon whom the pale horse that the writer of the Apocalypse, known as Death, rides upon, right? So, oh, hi, Jeannie. So I prefer to I like it's a mystery novel, right? It's a detective novel, but I like to sort of think of it as like apocalyptic fiction, if you will. So Ursabet is not just dealing with a murder mystery or catching the killer or whatever. There's a deeper reality that she is encountering. Jeannie says, "Ayo," yeah. Every now and then I like to listen to that silly Tayo Cruz song, Dynamite, from the early 2000s. Music was not very good back then, okay, but there was certainly something going on. It had a certain je ne sais quoi, 2005, 6, 7, that whole era. It really wasn't a good era for music, the early 2000s, but there were a few things about it that really are just enduring. They'll stand the test of time. Somehow I don't think Jeannie was thinking about that while typing that comment, but yeah. So Ursabet, she's finding herself in a world where all of these things are real. I mean, we live in a world where all of these things are real, but some people don't see it as clearly as others, right? And she's following the clues like any good detective, right? But she also has to use her knowledge of folklore and history and the occult to piece it all together. I wanted it I want it to be a book that is not just entertaining but also informative about the things that I'm interested in. Ursabet being sort of an agnostic character, right? She's not explicitly religious. She claims on several occasions not to believe in God, right? Or the supernatural. And yet she's probably the most open to it of any of the other characters, right? She sees things that others just don't see. Would that we were all like that. Would that all the Lord's people were prophets. The other thing I want to talk about is this book. Hopefully I don't get canceled for this. Behold a Pale Horse. Man, this is a book. Now, if you were paying attention, you would know that this is a book that is on Ursabet's bookshelf in her home in Arizona in 1998. Right? So she knows this book like the back of her hand. This is like the craziest conspiracy text. It's probably mostly bullshit, honestly. There's a lot in here that I am not on board with. But Bill Cooper did predict 9/11. Okay. What was his first name? Milton William Cooper. That's right. Bill Cooper, he had a radio show, and he said in early 2000, in June of 2001, something's going to happen, and Osama bin Laden is going to be blamed for it, and don't you believe it, right? So I don't know what he knew. He could have just been talking out his ass, but it's not. It's telling that he was killed in November of 2001 in an IRS sting. But Ursabet, I don't endorse everything that Ursabet believes, but this is like the Bible to her. Right? Ursabet has a long way to go. She's just at the beginning of her journey in this text, so we can forgive her for some of the unusual things she might believe at this point. What? I'm not sure what you're referring to, Jeannie. Are you the Bill Cooper? Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, it's one of those synchronicities, right? Like, there was a TV show called The Lone Gunman, which was a Vince Gilligan. Vince Gilligan worked on that. It was a spin-off of The X-Files. And I think it's the pilot episode is about, this aired in early 2001, right? The pilot episode featured a plot by terrorists to destroy the World Trade Center, and of course the lone gunman, right? These X-Files people come in and they save the day, Now some people look at this and they're like, oh, predictive programming, man. They all knew it was happening, and Hollywood was in on it, man. I don't think that's the case. What I think is actually going on is that artists, when they are working, they're sort of tapping into the collective sort of subconscious, right? And I think they actually are getting premonitions without knowing it. So I don't think there's some conspiracy here. I think that when you're in the position of being an artist, and you have to be sort of receptive to ideas, right? So I think whatever spirits rule that realm, I think they give people premonitions sometimes, and that's why you see these things that people are like, oh, predictive programming. Predictive programming is just artists acting in the role of prophets without knowing it, and I think it happens quite a bit. Like you see this with The Simpsons, right? And of course, there's all the debunkers out there who want to be like, oh, this, there's been 4 billion episodes of The Simpsons. They're bound to get something right, Well, come on. It's like 20 for 20, right? I mean, there's so many of these. Like the whole thing with like Trump coming down the staircase and waving at everybody. I mean, come on. With that amount of accuracy, give me a break, Maybe it's sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy kind of thing. But I think being an artist, being a writer or a creator in some way is a far more esoteric thing than people realize. I think that, you just make it up, right? Well, if you're really doing your job right, you're kind of tapping into things, even without knowing it, and that's where I think all this predictive programming stuff comes from. Now, I don't know about Bill Cooper. I don't know how he did what he did, right? I think he had a lot of crazy ideas, and he also said a lot. He had a lot. Let me put it this way: he had a lot of undeveloped ideas that I think if he had sat down and thought about a little bit, he would have come to better conclusions. Somehow he was right about 9/11. Oh, Mary's here. Ursabet's here. Hello, Mary. It's a Sunday once again. Last week, every day Jeannie says, last week, every day I woke up at 4 a.m. From these, Mary says, she's either saying rock on, hook 'em horns, or hail Satan. Not sure which she means. Yeah, it's funny. Let's see. Jeannie says, last week, every day I woke up at 4 a.m. from these very vivid, emotionally disturbing dreams. They began on Sunday and stopped the next Sunday. What do you make of that? Yeehaw! Jeannie says. Okay, so we've kind of done a 180 tonally. Well, I also have, whenever I remember my dreams, they're always terrible. I hate dreams. They're always weird or disturbing. And weird not in a good way, right? They're either like just totally bonkers craziness, or they're disturbing, or they're just not really nightmares, but there's just stuff I don't want to think about, right? I don't usually remember my dreams very well, but when I do, they're always terrible. I hate dreaming, okay? I think there's probably some kind of synchronicity, right? There's probably something at work with that, that it would just last a week like that. You could probably do some gematria, right, with the number, like the dates, right? I don't know. Add them up. The best advice I can give you is completely ignore your dreams. That's what all the church fathers say. Just ignore your dreams. Don't give them any hold over your life. The more you ignore them, the more they'll go away. And even the good dreams, right? They're all, because when you're dreaming, you're passive, right? You're passive. You're not in control. Your intellect is not in control of your will. And so it's just like if you have a problem with like gluttony or something like that, you don't let that passion rule your life, right? You don't bow to your stomach every time it grumbles at you. So I would just ignore. Yeah, I agree, Jeannie. They are fascinating, and there probably is some kind of pattern, but it's spooky for a reason. I would just ignore it and not even think about it, because the more you think about it, the more they gain a foothold in your life, and you don't want that. Dreams are bad news. Dreams very easily lead people astray. Dreams put all kinds of crazy ideas in people's heads. People do things based on dreams, so they become you don't bow to your stomach, Mary. You don't just you don't eat 17 tubs of ice cream because you might feel like it, right? You don't put in anything that you might desire. I want to take a nap at 3 p.m. every day, but I don't do that, right? Sleep is another passion. You want to mortify the passions. And come on, Mary, you do not eat 17 tubs of ice cream. Or you don't drink too much, right? You don't drink booze to the point of it becoming an addiction. And dreams are the same way. They're just another passion. Just ignore them, right? Don't give them a foothold in your life. Literally reading Freud this and next week in grad school, says Jeannie. He would disagree. Yeah, I know he would disagree, and that's why he was a hell-spawn pervert who's probably burning in hell right now. Hopefully not. We hope no one is in hell. But Freud was bad news. Freud had a lot of good ideas. Probably his best contribution was the idea that things that happen very early in your childhood can, basically screw you up forever. That was an idea that was really kind of unique to Freud, and he was probably very right about that. My preference is really for Jung. Although the Jungians, the people who are like acolytes of Jung, are so frustrating to me because they talk about archetypes, right? And they talk about spirits and all this kind of stuff. But then when you actually nail them down, they're like, oh no, it's just a metaphor, bruh. None of it's actually real, it's just like in our mind, man. I'm like, well, then I don't care. Just admit that it's all real, Just admit that the archetypes are real and that they actually affect us, Don't just put it in our heads. We have minds for a reason. Our minds are there to recognize reality, So if we have this, this idea that we can develop this whole psychological system, but at the base of it, it's based on nothing. So the Jungians are really quite irritating, honestly. But Jung himself, was a little more indifferent about it. Like, they could be real, they could not be. This is a very Jungian text in certain ways. Not like actually, but sort of. The stuff that I agree with Jung about. Mary says, oh no, now my booze. I'm sorry if you feel attacked, Mary. You can drink booze, just, don't be a violent alcoholic, I guess. And this all started with dreams, Don't pay attention to your dreams. Jeannie says, yeah, we're just reading the things that have survived scrutiny. I guess that means from Freud. Yeah, everything from Freud, I think, is suspect. Freud's whole thing is like, Freud has this very, like, Jean-Jacques Rousseau view of humanity, right? That we're like born as a blank slate, and then we get screwed up by society's rules, man. You know, and so his whole program is just getting to you to like embrace yourself, you know, and redirect your desires in healthy ways, which, you know, is better than the alternative of letting them run rampant. But the you know, it's only getting you halfway, you know, which is you want to get to the point where you're actually in control of yourself and in control of your desires and in control of your thoughts. Thoughts are very dangerous too, you know. Thoughts are basically mini dreams. Mary says, would you make your book into a Twin Peaks style show and let me and Jeannie be in it? Of course I would, you know. Get me the funding. Talk to your people in LA. I guess get me the funding. I would direct it, but I wouldn't write it. They'd have to hire a writing staff. I'm not interested in writing it twice. I've already written it, so yeah, we would need a writing staff. Mary says, excellent. Jeannie says, yeah, the determinism is bugging me, makes it hard to read without getting upset. Jeannie says, I'm also down for any audiobook. So there's going to be an audiobook, and Mary's going to read it. I hope to have it out by March. I want to have it out on March 11th. So obviously there's something going on with the numbers here. Yeah, Mary says, I'll have my people call your people. My dad's going to sue your dad. Yeah. Jeannie says, shut up. I can't help it that I'm from the burbs, man. I'm from Orange County. Yeah, there's going to be an audiobook. I don't know when we're going to do it. You know, I live in Arizona. Mary lives in LA. We'll figure it out. But I want to have it out March 11th. And then the next book I want to have out March 11th of 24. So there's like a 6-month, 18-month cycle going on here. So everything comes out on March 11th and September 11th. You know, so I'll spoil the book a little bit for you. At the very end of this, there is a tsunami. March 11th, 2011 was the last time there was a major tsunami in Crescent City. Crescent City is like tsunami central for North America, right? So that was the Japanese earthquake, right, that knocked out their nuclear plant and caused a huge tsunami in Japan. Well, the tsunami did reach the west coast of the United States, March 11th, 2011, and it just seemed appropriate that that's 6 months before September 11th, which is, of course, the Laylat al-Qadr, the night that everything happens to Ursabet, right, back in 1998, and then, of course, in 2001. So there's something going on with the numbers, 311, 911. Anton LaVey, by the way, the founder of the Church of Satan, said that 9 and 11 are the most satanic numbers. I'll let you think about that for a bit, what that might mean. Yeah, March 11th, 2011, the tsunami, it like destroyed the harbor. If you go up there, you can, you know, they have pictures of it, and it's really wild stuff, you know, like they have, you know, signs up, tsunami warning, don't turn your back to the water. It's serious stuff. Jeannie says, la 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 monkey, and I'm just kidding. Oh boy. Yeah, am I safe to shop in a 7-Eleven? Yes, you are safe to shop in a 7-Eleven. It's 7 to 11, right? Because it's open from 7 to 11, right? So it's not /11. Yeah, I mean, you know, just because there's spookiness going on with the numbers, right, doesn't mean that it's necessarily bad. You know, there are all kinds of things that we don't understand out there. And some of them are good and some of them are bad. Yes, Mary says, thank goodness. Yep. Yeah, 7-Eleven, I've never had a problem in a 7-Eleven. Nothing, I've never, you know, slipped into a time slip at a 7-Eleven. Yeah, forget what we were talking about. Jeannie says, spooky season. Indeed. Yeah, it is spooky season. We're getting up to spooky season. We got to get through, What else is happening in September? September has the exaltation of the Holy Cross, right? That's this week. And then September 24th is the conception of St. John the Baptist. After that, it'll really be spooky season. I guess you Latins have Michaelmas on the 29th. And then it'll really be spooky season. So the 29th for you guys. And then it's Halloween month. Halloween. Of course, that was the Feast of All the Saints used to be in May. And I forget which pope it was. Moved it to November 1st to coincide with the Celtic festival of Samhain. Basically to Christianize the feast, so that people would stop worshiping the old gods and redirect this feast into a more Christian celebration. I, unlike many people, I am pro spooky, scary Halloween. I'm anti-Harvest Festival. Okay, I am pro Halloween party, and I am pro scary and gory Halloween. Okay, I'm just gonna sue me, but that's the way it is. I'm anti-sexy Halloween though. Okay, spooky and scary and gory, A+. Sexy Halloween is a no-go for me though. Merits, yes, Samhain. That is how it's said. By the way, the Son of Sam killer, David Berkowitz, who's now like a Jesus freak, where he is in prison in New York. He was a serial killer, called himself the Son of Sam. And the media went all crazy about this because they're like, he was talking to his dog, right? The dog was like telling him to kill people, and the dog belonged to this guy named Sam, so he was the son of Sam. According to David Berkowitz, that's all bullshit. And Sam was really Samhain, right? So he said he was into the occult and witchcraft, and that's where that came from, not from his frickin' dog, So just another example of how the media lies to you. Okay. Mary says, now, knowing you and loving you, you've got some great hot takes, either educational theory or the like. Any cold take? Educational theory, well, you should definitely homeschool your kids if you're not a frickin' lunatic, okay? I would say everybody should homeschool their kids, because public school is just psychotic. Public school was designed by the Germans to turn everybody into a cog in service of the state, okay? But I know a lot of people who do homeschooling who are flippin' nuts, okay? So if you're flippin' nuts, okay, find a good private school. But other than, if you're not nuts, you should homeschool or unschool, okay? Because school is boring. Everybody hates school. It's terrible. There's a reason everybody hates school, because it's bad. It's bad for you. Most of the stuff you learn in school is totally unimportant, and I don't even like classical education, okay? Classical education was designed for the gifted, right? Classical education was oh, you've got this boy, he seems rather smart, he seems intelligent, so we'll send him to the university or give him to a tutor to learn the humanities, and then probably he'll go be a professor in Paris or become a priest or something like that. It was never supposed to be for everybody. So all these Catholic schools out there, they're like, we offer a classical education. We read Aristotle. And it's like, this was never supposed to be for everyone. This was supposed to be for the gifted, okay? Not for people who are going to grow up and become, people who are actually useful to society. People who are actually useful to society don't need an education. It's only the people who would otherwise just be parasites that need an education. They need an education because they need to direct their energy so that they're not just a lazy bum for the rest of their life, okay? Everybody else, you don't need an education, okay? You need to learn to read, right? You need to learn some math, I guess. And you need to, just read books. right? If you know how to read, you can get as much education as you need, right? Um, and so I'm basically anti-education. I think education is a bad idea. That's basically where I come down on educational philosophy. But you should still read my book, whether you're educated or not. Learn fine dining and breathing. Yes. See, this is also stuff. No, they don't. In American schools, of course, they don't teach you anything that's actually fun to learn. Like how to hold your fork, right, or anything like that. They teach you useless garbage, right, that you don't need to know. The exception to this, of course, is like music class, anything that's actually like teaching you a trade. But generally speaking, education is bad. It makes people hate learning, right? English class makes people hate books. Okay, you should read a very good essay by Francine Prose called "I Know Why the Caged Bird Can't Read," and she goes through all the terrible books that people read in high school. And this is before like everything got controversial, right? So she's just talking about normal stuff like To Kill a Mockingbird, and Catcher in the Rye. And she's like, these books are not good. We should give them good books to read, and maybe they'll like it better. But yeah, education makes people hate learning. It's basically not a good idea. Okay, let's see. Jeannie says, oh shit. What? I hate technology. Jeannie says, I had my sexy Halloween phase, hanging up the Harley costume for a while. Very good, very good. Of course, Harley Quinn, right? There's all kinds of esoteric stuff going on with Harley Quinn because she's based on a card, right? She's based on a playing card, which I kind of was going for like a tarot card look here. The first trump card is the Magician, but it's inverted on this cover. Why do you think that might be? Let's see. Jeannie says, I was definitely ahead in undergrad because of classical education in middle school and high school. And it's definitely helped me now in grad school. Well, you appear to be one of the few that actually makes use of it. It honestly doesn't surprise me, knowing you. Says it's definitely helping me now in grad school. It's like, none of this is supposed to like judge you because your parents bothered to educate you, right? Like, it's just, society would just be better if people didn't have to spend 12 years of their life in prison, learning stuff that they don't care about. Yeah, I agree. It's not for everyone. I didn't think I should have been there. Oh, and then love the tarot reference. Yeah, so I mean the tarot is really interesting, right? Because the tarot is only associated with the occult in like English-speaking countries. If you go to Europe, right? If you go to Italy, like the tarot is like just playing cards, right? But we have the French suit in the Anglosphere. So in England and the United States and Australia, Canada, New Zealand, right? The tarot is like, it's for divination, woo, right? If you go to Europe, right, they're just playing cards, and that's all they were until about the 1700s, when England was rife with occultism in the 1700s. That's when the Scottish Rite Freemasonry really took off, right? So the tarot developed this sort of occult thing that it never really had before. And before that, it had a much more mundane, or I guess orthodox kind of understanding behind it. Like the card, one of the trump cards, I forget what number it is called the Hierophant, right? But in some tarot decks, especially in Europe, it's called the Pope, right? And this is, if you really want to go off on a tangent, here's a book for you, Jeannie. It's called, oh crap, what is it called? It's by Valentine Tomberg. Okay, Valentine Tomberg. I think it's just called Meditations on the Tarot, A Journey into Christian Hermeticism. And it's basically about how Valentine Tomberg realized that, like, the sacraments are the real magic, right? It's a good book. Let's see. Mary says, all right, where do you see the trend of zodiac signs and tarot card readings growing in popularity? Can you point to a cultural shift? Ugh, gosh. I mean, a lot of this happened in the let me start here. The Western esoteric tradition really took off in like the early 1900s, right? So that's where you have the foundation of the Theosophical Society. Did I say 1800s? Early 1900s. So 1911, 12, 13, right? The Theosophical Society, the Golden Dawn, all these places, all these groups, right? Madame Blavatsky, W.B. Yeats, all these characters. And that led to spiritualism. If you watch any movies from like the 20s or the early 30s, you will find lots of references to this. This is when people started getting into seances, right? So back then, if you were spiritual, it just meant you were into like seances and reading the cards and that kind of thing. And then around the Great Depression, people had better things to do, like feed their families, so that kind of went away. But then it really came back in the 60s. That's really when you see the rise of Wicca, and just other occult esoteric practices. Probably a lot of this has to do with LSD, which is basically just eating demons. That's what LSD is. Don't do LSD, kids. Oh, Jeannie says the Hierophant is number 5. Thank you. But yeah, probably around the 60s, and that's when you had, like, it's the age of Aquarius, right? And reading the stars and that kind of thing. The thing with astrology and the zodiac is it has just devolved into, like, a bunch of low IQ wine mums, you know, trying to figure out how to fix their marriage. There actually is something to the zodiac, so, like, well, I don't know about the zodiac per se, but the just astrology in general, right? So St. Thomas Aquinas said the stars impel, but they do not compel. So the saints of the Middle Ages thought you could use the stars to predict general events, like you might be able to predict the start of a war, right? Or the way large numbers of people are going to behave, because he believed that the stars did have an effect on us, but he didn't believe that they could override our own free will. So you can't predict. The problem with astrology is that you're trying to predict with exactness. So you're trying to predict exactly what's going to happen with certainty. So you can't do that. And the other problem is that you're trying to predict in the specific. So you're trying to predict, like, whether you'll meet a tall, dark stranger or something like that. You're not allowed to do that. And this whole, you know, the age of Aquarius, that kind of thing, I mean, it really did change, right? So there was something going on. But yeah, I mean, it's now just been co-opted by, like, you know, a bunch of Karens. So yeah, like the horoscope that you read in the newspaper, totally cringe. If you actually go back and, like, look at, like, the alchemists of the Middle Ages, and again, you know, St. Thomas Aquinas, they actually had decent things to say about it. But it's pretty cringe at this point. I don't know about tarot card readings growing in popularity. I mean, I guess they're more popular now. I would bet that it was actually more popular, like, back in like the 20s and 30s would be my guess, than it is now. I feel like a lot of people just have, like, tarot decks laying around, but they don't actually use them for anything. Probably something that ought to be avoided. You know, there is a legitimate use for them. Obviously, if you're just playing a game, that's fine. But, you know, this stuff can actually be very dangerous. And that's, you know, that's part of what this book is about. This stuff is actually dangerous. This is not stuff to just be trifled with. You know, and a lot of people don't really understand that these days. They think it's just fun. And then, of course, well, another thing about the Zodiac, of course, in the 60s, you had the Zodiac Killer. So there seems to be something in the zeitgeist about the Zodiac. But, yeah, I feel like the Zodiac has gotten very popular. I don't feel like tarot cards are that popular anymore. But yeah, there's absolutely been a cultural shift. People don't have a religion anymore, right? There is no public cult, so there's no public religion, so they try to find something that they can make into their own religion, right? I mean, it's a legitimate impulse, and society is not giving them what they need, so they're going to go do it themselves. That's what's going on. Jeannie says, "Live, laugh, love. Gatekeep, gaslight, girl boss." That's my motto. Jeannie says, "I hadn't heard that Aquinas theory, but I've held that belief for a while as well." Wild, just wild, yes. Yeah, Aquinas has a lot of interesting things to say about magic and the occult, and it's not the stuff that you it's not the stuff that you just hear out in like popular culture, where like popular people who talk about the occult, right, from a more orthodox perspective. It's all just avoid it, it's bad. Now, you should avoid it, and it is bad, but there's more to it than that, and all the saints had something to say about it that is way more interesting than what you'll get from like your youth pastor. Okay, I'll just leave it at that. Mary says, "Do people seek faith in magic, and is it often misplaced?" Well, faith is elicited, so like supernatural faith is something that God does to you. So no, in your fallen state, you don't seek faith per se. You do seek religion, because religion is a natural virtue. You have to have a religion, okay? It doesn't matter, I mean, it does matter what it is, but having one is better than not having one, okay? So even if you're in like some crazy Aztec death cult, that's better than, being like a fedora-tipping atheist, because if you don't have ritual in your life, if you don't have a cultus, there's something missing. You're not being fully human, okay? Now, of course, I would prefer you be a certain religion, but being religious is a natural virtue, just like being honest or prudent or having right judgment, right? It's a natural virtue. So people naturally seek religion, and when the religions around them are either totally divorcing themselves from their roots, which is what happened especially to liberal Protestantism, but also in Catholicism in the West in the past 100 years. When you have that going on, or when just having no religion is becoming more and more popular, people are going to seek it out, and they're going to make their own, because it's just a natural human desire. So they're going to make Wicca, okay? They're going to make Thelema. They're going to make, LaVeyan Satanism. They're going to do all these things because it's just a natural thing that human beings need to actually be human beings, right? So, like Aleister Crowley, who founded Thelema, right? He was raised in the Plymouth Brethren, which is also what Audrey Assad was raised in, and they were a very dour, horrible religious sect. No fun, right? Just absolutely puritanical and terrible, And so it wasn't, no liturgy, no ritual. It wasn't giving him what he needed as a human being, right? So he went and created his own, beast antichrist version of it. And who can blame him, really? The people who were supposed to, give him the truth didn't. So that's what happened. Yeah, so people absolutely seek religion. Magic is just the accomplishment of ends out of proportion to their means. Okay, so if I reach out and pick up this rock, that's not magic, because to pick up the rock, it is a very proportional mean. I reach out, pick up the rock, right? If I go woo and the rock flies into my hand, that's the accomplishment of ends out of all proportion to the means. So there's many types of magic. Some of which are legitimate and some of which are not. But yeah, people absolutely seek magic in their lives because they want transcendence. They want to tap into the world that is beyond, right? So like the sacraments are magic, right? The priest says some words and now it's the body of Christ, right? That's a type of magic. That's like a divine magic, and it's legitimate because God said to do it, and he's the one providing the change. Right? So you're not invoking demons or angels or anything like that. You're invoking God. He says he'll do it, and he does it. So that's a type of divine magic. Then there's like sympathetic magic, which can be legit or not. depending. So, like, crystals. People think crystals have healing properties. If you believe that the crystal has some kind of innate property, right, some innate physical property that has a healing power to it, which some crystals absolutely do. Just think of salt, right? Salt has healing properties. That's a type of magic that we don't really understand. Gravity is magic, right? You go up high and you fall down. What's that all about? I don't know. Electricity is a type of magic, but these are all understood to be sort of semi-physical phenomena, and so they're legitimate. If you believe that the crystal gives you good luck, or you believe that some angelic presence is in the crystal and is healing you, now we're into the superstitious. And then, of course, there's ritual and ceremonial magic, which is all banned, right? But yeah, people want that kind of stuff because, well, the world is not enough, as the song goes, right? The world is not enough. We're made for more, so people are seeking it out. And when you're raised in a world where everybody around you is just a materialist, you know, and people laugh at you if you say you've seen a ghost or saw a fairy or something like that, well, some people get brainwashed and just believe that, and other people are like, no, there has to be more, and so they go seeking it out, sometimes in places that are not good for them. Let's see. Mary, can you think of religion as an instinctual need for trust? That's I mean, the word religion just kind of means relationship, to bind to someone. That's a good insight there. Jeannie says, is all this metaverse and transhumanism a type of magic then? Oh, absolutely. I mean, science is magic, right? Science is just magic that experts claim to understand, okay? Science is just the new sorcery, right? There's literally no difference between alchemy and modern day science. Oh, you can like press a button in Fort Lauderdale and it controls a piece of metal on the moon. Yeah, see, that's magic. It's magic that maybe we have a slightly better understanding of, but it's all the same thing. And you'll notice, you know, science is basically a religion now. All the priests are the priests of science wear their white lab coats, right? So science is another way that people get religion and ritual in their lives. And yeah, it's absolutely a type of magic. Transhumanism is like... transhumanism is chaos magic, just like Crowley. You know, it's trying to transcend your human form, right, and become immortal. Yeah, transhumanism is like a Luciferian chaos magic, absolutely. Yep, Jeannie says, the world is full of magic. I see it everywhere. It's incredible. Yeah, that's true. And you remember that line from Kafka Part 2 where Tom asks, is there magic all around us? Of course, the answer implied is yes. Yes, there is magic all around us, right? We live in an enchanted world and people just don't see it. Once again, this book takes place in an enchanted world. It's about a woman who sees the hidden worlds around her when nobody else does. And, you know, there are certain places in the world where you can really feel it. And Del Norte County, the Redwoods, Crescent City is one of those places, you know. You just feel it in the trees and in the sea, right? The high desert, you know, Mojave Valley, right? The Mojave Payphone, all this kind of stuff. These are magical things. These are magical places, magical portals where you're not, hey, Jonathan, how's it going? Yeah, where you're not... San Diego, by the way, for you, Jonathan, is a very magical place. Very magical place. All kinds of crazy stuff going on out there. Queen Khalifa's Magic Circle in Escondido, Elfin Forest. Just take a drive at night out in the hills of San Diego. There is so much magic going on out there, it's not even funny. But yeah, you know, you can feel it in certain places. And, you know, the company is called Lonely Places Press, right? Why is it called that? It's because all these books are set in the lonely places, and in the lonely places you can feel these things, you know, more strongly, right? You can feel everything kind of vibrating at a higher level. You know, I sound like a new ager, I don't mean to, but like you can feel the energy, right? It's just a very, you know, when you're out somewhere like, I've been through the desert on the horse with no name, right? In the desert, you can remember your name, right? So the lonely places are places where you can remember your name. And there's all kinds of wild stuff going on out there. In the city where you can barely even hear yourself think, all that gets, no wonder people don't see fairies anymore, right? It's because, there's somebody honking on the 405 24 hours a day. So, yeah, the lonely places, the spirit of the lonely places, and the mystery of iniquity. The lonely places are the home of the mystery of iniquity. Let me put it that way. Yeah. I sound like an absolute lunatic. There was something else in here that I wanted to read to you all. Now I can't I can't remember what it was. I think it was near the end. Oh well, it doesn't matter. Oh, Jeannie says, have you read Circe? I have no idea how to say that. By Madeline Miller. I think you'd like it. I have not read it. People give me recommendations, and usually they're pretty good, so I'll check it out. I don't know. I'm trying to think of other books that are kind of, similar. Hold the Dark by William Giraldi, kind of has that same thing going on. Anyway, we've been going for almost an hour, so I think I'm gonna wrap it up here. I'll give the final plug. Okay, Land of Giants: A Mystery of the Redwoods by Webb Harter. It's now available at books.colewebharter.xyz for $24.99 plus free shipping. If you want a signed copy, that will be $27.99. It is also available on Amazon, I think also for $24.99. I've got 7 books left from the original printing that I need to sell, so shill. Get your orders in. Alrighty, everybody. I will see you later.